Hello, everyone. Welcome to Across the Park podcast. Firmly an Everton podcast now. Look at that intro. It's lovely, but we've still got the park in there, so we're still across the park. Myself, Gary Judge, joined by Andrew Price tonight. We'll be reviewing the international break, as well as looking forward to the Southampton game and the women's Merseyside derby. Just touching on that, a bit of a momentous occasion on Merseyside for the ladies, and we'll be celebrating that 3-0 Everton victory. Just before we get into the actual podcast, just a massive thank you to our main sponsors, our new sponsors, Globe Heating and Plumbing. If you check them out on Instagram, a cracking company. They actually done my bathroom not so long ago, which is how we managed to get them on board. Lee Edwards, who runs the business, absolutely tough fella. I'm buying some time here to make sure I get the Instagram right.
Nice to be sponsored by a local lad as well. He's a local lad, Evertonian.
He is a local Evertonian, which is even more important. Some of our friends and listeners will know him. And again, I'm buying some time here to make sure I get the. So it's Globe_gas_plumbing. If you're on Instagram, check them out. Loads of pictures of the different bathroom suites that these guys put out, and it's globecentralheating.com. As we get into the winter, obviously, and the boilers are breaking down. I know they're experts at that, but more than anything else now, fitting bathrooms, fitting new boilers, and making sure you're efficient for all the energy hikes that we're going through at the moment. So massive thanks to Lee and massive thanks to Globe. Pricey, international break. I mean, for us going into the international break on the back of a 1-0 victory was refreshing, and it was a good little springboard for us. But then, with this young squad, this energetic squad, and this squad that's now littered with a few more internationals than we've had recently, there's that concern, isn't there? Who's going to come back fit? And we've been dealt a huge blow in the shape of Nathan Patterson's injury. Yeah,
it's good that we've got the players now who are being considered internationally for the starters as well. Patterson and Nana started at the weekend. You've got Gordon and Garner who started for England the 21s. There's probably more as well, but it's nice to see. But I prefer us to get little niggles before international tournaments so that we have to pull out Alex Ferguson style, and we're not interested. I'm not interested in seeing an Everton player playing for England. If they are, or internationally, if they are, I'll cheer them on. Hope they do well, but I prefer they sit it out and as I say, get a little niggle and miss it. But the Patterson one was a blow because, I didn't watch the game, but it was all over social media and everything as soon as it happened, and WhatsApp group lighting up and everything like that, saying it looks like a bad one, it looks like he might be out for a while. So, and then you're just looking at the Google then and looking at the news outlets and seeing how bad it is, and it sort of didn't get any publicity for a while to say how he'd done. And I think it's come out now that he's going to be, a month out and it's his ankle, which is disappointing, but I think it could have been worse. I think when you looked at him getting stretched off and whatever else, then it looked like it could have been a really serious one. So a month, I'll probably take a month, in hindsight. But yeah, positive to see the Evertonians, though. I think that's what you said. Positive to see them all in there. And as I say, I don't really watch international footy friendlies that much or Nations League, so I can't tell you how they all done particularly. But I'm really impressed with Gordon and Garner getting into England under the 21 team, because it's a tough team to get into. That.
Yeah, definitely. Joe Garner, I've said it to a few people. I think he's going to be a huge bonus for us going as the season goes on, and he kind of adapts to the increased physicality of the Premier League. And you talk about the under 21s being a tough team to break into, or midfield to break into. The Everton midfield is a tough midfield to break into now as well. So we'll talk later in the show about whether he might feature at Southampton. But you mentioned briefly then Onana starting for Belgium again, a very, very strong side that they're littered with talent, that Belgium team, and to see him starting there again was really encouraging for me. Gives him a chance of maybe going to the World Cup at that young age, which again, for his value for the club, you look at it commercially, it's a big plus. We paid big money for him, but he looks like someone already who's going to certainly commercially double that value at least in years to come.
And that's what you look at when you sign those players. You sign the young players, even though you want them for now, you do want to sell on value. I know we spoke about it in the past about getting players who are established players and paying them high wages. So this new way of doing things is better, and it's there to see, as you say, when they're going into the international duty and being considered. Obviously, you've got your links with Belgium and everything else that goes with that. But yeah, it's good to see. gives confidence to them as well. They come back. I mean, Belgium won the under-21s won. So if they come back with that bit of confidence, back to Finch Farm with confidence, they can build on that and build up the momentum. Obviously, if they're not playing, you get the rest. But playing and winning and feeling good and coming back into the squad is good. And Garner and Gordon being in the same team and linking up together and building that friendship up as well in international duty, I suppose, is a positive as well.
100%. Speaking of players we're not going to see, as in, following on from Patterson for a while, one player we won't be seeing ever again at Goodison is Allan, who made his, I guess, long anticipated exit. It's been clear for a while now that he's not been in Frank Lampard's plans. I guess the three midfielders cementing their place in there and the good start they've made, not to mention Tom Davies maybe coming back into the fore, and Joe Garner, as we just mentioned, Decore. We've got a lot more depth in there than we did have last season. Allan's exited. I think it's rumoured to be worth around 5 million to the club because of the saving on wages. What do you make of that deal? And is it the right move for everyone, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it went under the radar, that one, a little bit, didn't it? I woke up, there was no talk about it as far as I could see, and then all of a sudden he's gone overnight, I think it was, when I woke up on Thursday or whatever morning it was, when I woke up and he'd gone. Fair enough, he's gone, as you say. You're trying to regenerate that midfield, and he was never going to be a starter. Lampard's made it clear he's not going to start. Even at the end of last season, he hardly played, and this season he hasn't even been on the pitch, I don't think, from memory.
Yeah.
So he was never going to get in the team. So yeah, saving that wages, even if there's no fee, just saving the wages that he's on it makes sense. But he's one of those players, Allan. When he first came, I mean, me and you watched him in that first game against Spurs, I remember, away, and he was brilliant. And you thought you were getting a really strong midfielder.
Yeah.
And he was for the first season. He got a couple of niggly injuries and whatever. And then I just think he died a bit of a death, and he lost that.
He started to look more leggy, didn't he?
Yeah.
He was struggling with the physicality of it, of the Premier League. And I seen at first, and I think you did, and most Evertonians did, a clever midfielder who'd always foul at the right times. He'd very rarely he didn't get sent off, but he was always getting little bookings, but he'd break up the play quite well, and a little Allas to for want of a better word. And the partnership he struck up with Decore, particularly under Ancelotti, was very strong, and I thought that was certainly going to be our midfield or our hold midfield for quite some time. I guess the change in formation has a big impact on him, doesn't it? If you're playing three in midfield more than two, where does he really fit in there? He's not really that deep playmaker, is he, that Lampard seems to like? And he's not quite physical enough to kind of get around like Guy and Onana do.
Exactly that. I think if you compare him to Guy, especially because that's probably the role he'd play if he was going to get a game. He just hasn't got that turn of speed and closing down players as good as even he did when he first arrived. I thought he was half decent at that when he first came, but over the couple of years he's been here, he seems to have lost that bit about him. But I think as well it's positive for Everton because it shows that we're improving. I think he was started this time last season. He was the main, I'd say with Decore, but he was the main man in midfield. So it shows we've improved and we can get rid of him and afford to get rid of him. And we've got, not only have we got players in the starting 11 who you prefer over him, you've got subs as well who you prefer to be on the bench instead of him. So positive for Everton. And as you say, saving that money is always a bonus in this day and age as well.
100%. Well, I said we touch on the women's derby. I mean, it wasn't a lot going on last weekend. You spoke about not being a fan of the international fixtures. I'm very similar. I watch most footy matches, to be honest, but it's mainly the tempo of those games that kills me off. But I was interested to keep an eye on the score from the women's game. I mean, just because of the nature of my job, being involved in sports, as we try to keep up to speed with what's going on. Liverpool had started the season by beating Chelsea, who were the champions, who've been dominating women's football for quite a few years. So when Millsy took his lad the game and his nephews, I think, I said to Millsy, "Oh mate, we're probably coming up against the Liverpool team now, who are probably going to be as strong as the men's team are in a few years." But just to touch briefly on the result, Everton winning 3-0 is brilliant, obviously for the young girls and young children who went to watch the game. I think credit to Liverpool for getting the game on at Anfield. Brilliant, and 28,000. I think you said 27,000 odd. Turning out, which was a record for a women's Merseyside derby. Another massive positive. The only thing I'd say, and it's the only reason I didn't go, was the kick-off time was 6:45 on a Sunday. I mean, like, a great opportunity, all them ticks in the boxes that we've just mentioned there. And I don't want to put a dampener on it because there's a lot more positives that have come out of it than negatives. But I would have loved to have seen that at like earlier in the day. And I don't think it would have been far off being full.
No, it's a strange one. There's seems to be no reason for it. Whether, for that late in the day, I don't think anyway.
It was Sky, to be honest. There was a Arsenal and Tottenham played. There's a North London derby, and it was like, I think they were trying to, from Sky's point of view, I think they were trying to do what they would have done for the men's in terms of having an early one and a later one. But you'd never see a men's game on a Sunday at 6:45. Never. You never would. Like, it would always be 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock, wouldn't it?
The early one would be even earlier, wouldn't it? So, we've got Man United at 7 o'clock next Sunday, haven't we? But yeah, it's but yeah, you're right. It's and fair play to Sky. I mean, fair play for the fact that we can have a game. The ladies can have a game at Anfield now and get 28,000 or thereabouts going to attend the match. Just shows how far that game's coming. I'm not trying to be patronising by saying that I genuinely think it's a positive thing. I mean, I've got a daughter, you've got a daughter. It's good for our daughters to be able to see that that's what's achievable if they got into footy and they wanted to do that. So I think it's a positive, and you've got to say fair play to Sky if that's what they have done. They put a couple of a double header on, try and get the interest going and try and get people watching and use that day specifically for the WSL. So it's a good thing. I mean, 3-0 as well. It's always good to get a derby win. We'll take any derby win we can, especially at Anfield. So
we'll take winning a game at odds and evens at Anfield if we could. But yeah, that as I say, I think it was a really positive day for women's footy and for footy on Merseyside, and for the women to rightfully get some of the recognition that they've taken from the World Cup and to keep moving forwards. And listen, if we can use the international break for that value alone of getting the women into big stadiums and getting the kids along, then it's worth its while for me more than anything else. So
won't be the last time.
No.
It's played at big stadiums. That's just the start of it for them now, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Well, we've got a couple of questions. We've certainly got one that I'm just focusing on now, and it's from Dad O'Day, massive fan of the show and good friends of the show. So I'll read it out to you, Pricey. We'll kind of bat it around. So, all right, lads, this week's question: with us picking up a few injuries in key positions, do you think it might be a time to give some of the under 23s a chance to break into the team? Or would you play it safe with our usual bench players? Thoughts? I think he's, again, reading in between the lines with the last part of his question saying, would you stick with our usual bench players? I think he's suggesting that maybe some of the players that, I don't know, your Solomon Rondons who always seem to sit on the bench, or I don't know. It would have normally been Coleman, but Coleman's obviously a really important player and is in there. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that some of the players who maybe your Stanley Millses, for example, do they need, particularly with the fact we can have 5 subs, do they need to have more presence on the bench to give them that option to come on?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them on the bench. I think our squad, our first team squad, if you like, is good enough to cover for these injuries. I think I spoke about it in the week with Mike, I think, or last week with Millsy, and said we sort of got 2 players now for each position that is strong enough to play. I'm not saying good enough to be a good team, but strong enough to be in the team. 1 or 2 if there's injuries. So I think I'd like to stick to the first team squad, have them under 23s in and around the squad, and yet be on the bench and maybe get 10 minutes if we're winning and that type of thing. But your Patterson's injured. I think Coleman will come in there. I think he's still good enough to come in whenever he's needed in those type of games. So I'll play him. There was talk about Michalenko maybe being injured, although I think that was just a knock and he's fine. But if he wasn't, I think you could shuffle the pack and put one of your first team as a left back. So yeah, I don't think we're ready for under 23s to come in yet. I don't think it's that type of situation. But I'd certainly have them on the bench and getting that experience in and around the squad and getting to understand what it feels like to be in the squad.
I agree. To be honest,
really.
No, I agree. Thanks for the questions, Aaron. I'm just looking at the next question.
We did have another question about
Liam D. That's the one I'm looking at now. So I'll ask this one now. If you don't mind, if you've got another one, you can follow up. Hey lads, what's the opinions on Iwobi moving to right back in Patterson's absence, getting Garner back into the team to potentially fill that gap? Coleman is the obvious replacement and it suits the 4-3-3, but sometimes you need to get all your best players on the pitch at once. I mean, I buy into that. I do. I think there's also a degree of potentially cutting your nose off to spite your face, if you like, because probably not the right term, but Iwobi's been without doubt for me, and I think few would disagree, our best player for quite some time now in terms of his consistency and his output. To move into right back would almost be something of a punishment and would weaken us, if anything, rather than making us stronger. Your thoughts on that?
Two things really. Yeah, same about the midfield. Why we've gone mad about the midfield the last game we played in a good way. We've been made up with them. We've played as a three. They played really well together. I don't think I'd want to jeopardise that. I'd want to keep them playing in midfield for as long as possible and building up that understanding even more so. And especially with Iwobi being as good as he's been in midfield as well again. You don't want to take that consistency away from him and make him play right back, and potentially could have a bad game at right back. It's not his natural position. His confidence could get knocked again. And then second of all, what's the point in giving Coleman another contract if you're not gonna have him on the pitch when there's an injury to your right back? I think that's what he's made for. Or that's not what he's made for. But that's what he's in the squad for. That's why we still would need him for when there's an injury. Obviously, you've got Carabao Cup type of games that he can play as well. But yeah, I'd say this is a perfect opportunity for Coleman to come in, step in for a couple of weeks, keep his fitness up as well, which I know is not a reason to play someone, but it does help. And just keep that midfield as strong as possible. And that's where, at the end of the day, that's where the game's won and lost most of the time, is in midfield. And I think you want to be as strong as you can in that area, especially if you've got a right back on the bench who's got the experience that Chambers has got.
I think in fairness as well, if you look at the way that we've approached games, and it's been somewhat Achilles heel, we haven't had that much threat from our fullbacks. I mean, look, Patterson's good, don't get me wrong, he gets forward a lot better than Michalenko does, gives us energy, but he's not been a player who's been raining assists, has he? Do you know what I mean? We're not going to miss that kind of attacking fullback, which I think is what the listener is getting at in terms of maybe putting Iwobi in there. Look, some would argue it gives us another dimension if you put someone like an Iwobi there, because we might get an extra edge from the wide areas that we haven't got. So I think it's an interesting one, definitely. But I'm with you. I think we've got an evergreen, very experienced right back who the thing you said about Coleman is, despite the fact he might not be match fit in terms of getting them minutes, he will be as fit as anyone in that squad. He'll be putting the work in. He's completely professional. He's very reliable. He hasn't got the engine anymore, but I think as long as he can be solid, it gives us that base, which we're hopefully starting to benefit from in terms of getting results.
Yeah. And then just imagine, I could just see it. We'll be having a nightmare as a right back as well, and his confidence going. He'd be proper Everton, and then he can't get going again in midfield, and he's just back to that. I could just see it.
I can't see Lampard trying to be that clever, to be honest.
No,
I really can't. I think he's struck on something. And I think the key aspect of it is being kind of keeping it simple, hasn't he? He's been putting players in positions they're comfortable with. He's been trying to complement them with other players. I haven't seen much of him putting players or square pegs in round holes. So just
for the last 10 minutes, I think I've always gone on the right and on the left. The last 10 minutes of games when we've needed them to, but to start there's a bit of a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. By the way, we did get some. I'm going to address this now because I've just been conscious that I've been doing a bit in price shares. We got a comment from someone on YouTube saying, "Lads, don't be looking at your phones all the time." We're not like sitting there texting our girlfriends or wives or whatever. We're actually looking at questions and trying to remind ourselves of the odd stat. So just to address that one in case anyone picks up on it.
Yeah, it's a fair enough comment, I suppose.
It is.
It doesn't look good, but yeah, we're trying to keep it going as we podcast them.
Yeah, and we're also trying to and get our stats wrong. We've been getting just as much stick about saying that Gordon got a 60 million bid and whatever. Listen, just on that one, we enjoy the comments. We always do. So even if it is to rip us or to slag us off, please comment away. Right, what else? What else have we got? I think that's it from the questions. And we are going to move on to the preview of the upcoming game at the weekend, which is Southampton away, a place where, I mean, again, I'm going to be corrected quite quickly about this one, I'm sure as well. I don't remember us having much joy there over the last few years. We always seem to struggle against certainly this Hasenhüttl Southampton team that are full of energy, and they just seem to be like a bit of a kryptonite for us, particularly at St Mary's. We never seem to play that well there. I mean, look, we are looking at a slightly different team, and certainly it's got a lot more energy than it did before. But I don't know, it's just something about Southampton away I just never seem to look forward to.
Yeah, and as you say, I think we always get off to a terrible start to St Mary's from my memory, and I haven't looked that up. But we always seem to be in at half time, a goal down or 2 goals down or whatever, and trying to pull it back and fight back. But it's a perfect chance. I mean, this season is going to be up and down. We're going to have games where we win like we did last week. I think this might be one of those games where we might fall. To be honest with you, I know we're on a high from the win at Goodison, but I just think it's one of those games, as you say, we don't really play well there. As a rule, they're close to us. It's going to be a bit of a. I think they'll make it tough for us. Southampton, they sort of play through Ward-Prowse. They scrap a bit as well. They're not scared to have a good go, and as you say, close down and press. And I've just got a little feeling it might be difficult for us, to be honest with you.
Yeah, look, we're not wrong, by the way. So I have just checked it, and there's another example of me maybe looking at my phone, but I've tried to keep it at eye level. So our last few visits to St Mary's, 2-0 last season, 2-0 the year before, 2-1 the year before that, 4-1. Bloody hell! It's been a long time. The last victory I can see, unless I'm missing one here, is a 3-0 victory back in 2015. So it has been a while. I'm just seeing what that game was. It was a long while. I'm looking at players here. We've got Brendan Galloway in the team. Lukaku got 2 that day, and Ross Barkley. So it's been 6-7 years since we won there. But yeah, unfortunately, I do tend to agree with you. I think it's one of them fixtures where Lampard and the players will be going into it thinking Southampton very beatable. We've got a solid base in terms of keeping clean sheets. But I think that you look at the teams that are certainly done well against Southampton this season, and they are the teams that are strong going forwards and can get goals. Because I think you can outscore Southampton, comfortably. They're no great shakes, and they are a bit ropey at the back. But I think that's not this team, is it, for us? We at the moment we're in a position because of the lack of a proper big centre forward that we can kind of put balls up to. We need to grind results out almost, don't we? And without goals from midfield, it looks like it's going to be the 1-0s, isn't it, for now?
I think so, yeah. And with the international break, we spoke about how positive it was for the Everton players to be on international break, but it does mean that we've been away from the training ground for a week or longer, working on our shape and our set pieces. I think where we need to try and get goals this season, and try, as you say, we haven't got that out-and-out goal scorer, or it doesn't appear that we have anyway, with Morpie. So we need to work on, set pieces, little patterns of play to get goals. So I think it'll be hard. I think I'd be interested to see Che Adams for Southampton, how he does, because when there was talk about potentially us going for him, it was boo-booed by a lot of people. No one was interested in him. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays against us. And I think he, don't get wrong, I'm one of those players that say we need to sign him, but I do think he can be dangerous.
He causes problems, doesn't he? And he's got that physicality that Morpie hasn't got. He works hard, Morpie, and we've seen the value and the fact he can finish and whatever. And I think that's probably Che Adams' the biggest criticism of Che Adams. He doesn't get enough goals, but he always causes a problem, doesn't he? Because he's quick, he's strong, he's good in the air. He can score from different distances or whatever. He's got a decent shot on him as well from outside the area. So I think and particularly look at Cozy and Tarkowski, that forward that's a bit more mobile and stuff might cause them some problems.
I think he'll love testing himself against them two as well, especially how we've kept a couple of clean sheets on the run and hardly conceded that many anyway across the season so far. So I think he'll fancy having a go against them and seeing how he does. But yeah, let's wait and see. But I mean, I hope I'm wrong. But as you say, just going to Southampton it's never one of those you look at, is it, and go, Southampton. It's just like
no.
going there. And...
I'm so glad the feeling I had about it was vindicated by the previous results, because I can just you know what, I remember actually, I don't know, it wasn't last year. Or was it last year? I done one of those watch-alongs with like some Everton channel, and it was Southampton away. I think it might have been last season. Oh my God, it was one of the worst 2 hours of my life. And forgive me, I can't remember the name of the. It was Mike. Was it Mike's channel? It was Mike's channel. You had him on the other night. Yeah. So I don't know, watch along with him. And I'm sure Mike's watching now. I'm sorry, Mike, for not remembering it was you guys. I think it might have been 2020, actually. I think it was last year, but we done the watch along, and Mike's connection went down. So I'm in the middle of this watch along, never done one before, and it was dreadful. We were like 2-0 down. I'm sitting there going, so Mike's gone. Commentating on it. It's bad enough watching Everton when they're playing poorly, but trying to commentate on it while you're like watching the telly. It was a weird experience, but I didn't enjoy it one bit.
Well, I had me Godfrey made his debut there at right back, and it was after that game I said he will never ever be good enough to play for Everton. And I said he's absolutely terrible. I said not a chance, and they always get thrown back into WhatsApp groups.
It was that game, 2020. It must have been, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was 2 years ago. Yeah.
It was that game. He came on, didn't he? Didn't he come on?
No, he came on early though. Someone got injured.
He was at left back, wasn't he? Though, and he just looked like a fish out of water.
Terrible, yeah.
But yeah,
he was right back. He played right back, and he was
one of the full back positions, definitely. I thought it might have been left back, but you're probably right. No, it was left back, because I remember him. He played loads at left back initially, didn't he?
Look, it was right back. Anyone comment and tell us what it was?
Right
back, no. I think it was right. I'm sure I've got it etched in my memory.
One of us will be corrected, I'm sure, by the listeners. So this will be one of them chances for you to comment and correct one of us. But at least half of the podcast will be right, whichever way we go. So anyway, you suspect, and we're both suspecting the Seamus Coleman starts the game. Any other changes there? I mean, there was a rumour, and again, I don't want to Google this one, which I should know, but I haven't heard anything. There was a rumour that Mikalenko was injured, but I haven't seen that be confirmed anywhere. No, I think
he said he had a knock. I think he said he had a knock before one of the games.
He said he felt some discomfort or whatever, but he didn't play in the Scotland game, but then played in the next game. So I think he's fine. He played almost a full game of the second game. So I think apart from Patterson, we're pretty much as you were. I don't think. Well, I'm certain Pickford doesn't quite make it back for this game. Calvert-Lewin obviously has another setback, so he won't be featuring. Would it be as you were then?
Yeah, I think it'd have to be, wouldn't it? I think we played well. So I think we've got to have the same team, exactly the same. Just Coleman fitting in for Patterson, which will be easy enough. As I say, they haven't had that work on the training ground over the last couple of weeks, so let's just go back to the way we were. Try not to change anything, as you said before, about not being too clever with his tactics, trying to change it for change's sake. I just keep it exactly the same. As you say, I don't think anyone's out apart from Patterson, so why not? Yeah,
I think the only I say dilemma. It's not a dilemma for us, I don't think, because is Damari Gray. I think that'd be the only one that he might be tempted to look at. Damari Gray and McNeil. He seems to like McNeil away from home because he's defensively sound, and Southampton have got fullbacks who do get forward a lot. I don't know if he'll consider that. It wouldn't be one for me because I think we have a lot more of a threat on the break and in forward areas with Damari Gray in there. And I think, if I'm honest, he looks more most likely to score out of them forwards at the moment when he's on the pitch. So I'd like to see him start, but I think it might be one that he'll be tempted to look at. I don't think he'll. I'd be shocked if he messed with the midfield because they're very combative midfield, and that's exactly what you want going to Southampton. I've got a feeling we might see James Garner at some point during the proceedings and him getting some minutes. But yeah, I agree. I think it'll probably be as you were. So on that note, and we've both built it up as a potential banana skin prediction.
I'm not. I'd say I'm not confident in it. I'm not going to predict us getting beat because I just don't want to do that. But I'll say a draw. I mean, yeah, I'll say a score draw, probably a 2-2. If we can score, I can't see us keeping. keeping a clean sheet against Southampton away. I do worry for us. I think this is going to be a tough one. I do. I know that they're right by us in the league, and they haven't started, brilliantly. But yeah, I'll say a score draw.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I'll go for 1-1 instead of 2-2. I'm not sure we've got two goals in us, and I'm hoping that we won't ship 2 goals. So I'm going to go at 1-1. But I do agree with you. I think it's a tough fixture. I know we've drew a lot of games so far, and I'm hoping that doesn't come back to bite us. But this would be a good draw for me. I think to go away to Southampton and get a draw would be a good one.
Yeah, because even though we have drew quite a few, you still got to look at it on a game-by-game basis and say, as you say, Southampton away, a draw is decent, regardless of how you've done before. That's a decent point to have. So if we come out there with a draw, then brilliant. If we get a result, then it's fantastic.
Definitely. Okay, well that's about all we've got time for. That's all we need to cover this week. For anyone who hasn't watched them, we got a few really good episodes out this week with a few of our good friends. We have Mel Harvey, Colin Harvey's daughter, again, very good friends of the show. We had Dave Downey on as well, and you recorded one as well, Pricey. Do you want to talk?
Yeah, Mike from the Blue Boys Network, Brummy lad. But as we discussed on the podcast, his dad's from Liverpool, so we'll say that's all right. He's a Scouser. But we had really nice lad and good conversation. Just chatted about the season generally, how we think it's going, and maybe how we might see it panning out for the season ahead as well. But really enjoyed talking to him, and hopefully have him on again at some point.
Yeah, no, all really cracking guests, and we had a lot of comments, so thanks for that. A lot of views on those podcasts, a lot of people saying it's great to see and hear another voice, and we'll try and do that as often as we can. Gives us a bit of a breather, but I think it's good to get other people's perspective on it, and those three have got very different perspectives, but all equally very well respected in the podcast game, and obviously in Mel's case, got a lot of pedigree in the family as well. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Hopefully it's a good weekend for the men's side of the Blue, the men's side of Everton. The men's this weekend. Hopefully we can represent ourselves as well as the women did over the weekend. Have a good weekend, everyone, and we'll catch you next week.